This is Coach Lee, and I'm going to share with you some positive signs during separation. This suggests that your spouse could not be as far gone or as lost as it seems, and that the marriage is not as hopeless as it might seem when you first heard that they wanted to separate. And you may notice some of these, you may not notice others. That doesn't mean your situation's hopeless. If you notice a few of these, a few positives are still positives, and you need to see those and understand that they can improve even more from there, and that just a few positives in the mind of your spouse during separation are really all that it takes for them to seriously consider coming back, working on the marriage, and for this to be behind you. Number one, they mention happy memories from the past. Maybe they talk about vacations you went on, things that you said, or they remember the day of your wedding. They remember good things that happened in your family if you have kids. And they mention things from the past that show that they're actually reflecting on things, thinking about it, and that it still means a lot to them, because that makes it more difficult for them to walk away. If they are still attached to those memories, then usually they're still attached to the marriage and to you in a lot of ways, and time is usually only going to help that, so keep that in mind. Number two is reluctance to proceed with the divorce, or reluctance to make it final. A lot of times I'll have a client in a coaching or counseling session, and they'll tell me, it's odd because everything is set up right now for the divorce to happen, but my spouse who left and is separated from me has not signed anything yet. They're delaying, and I don't understand why. Usually that's a good thing. Usually it means that they got right to the edge of the cliff and they just couldn't end the marriage. They just couldn't do it, or at least not yet. That means you're still in the game. And of course, I'm not calling this a game. It's just a figure of speech, but you are still in a situation where it makes sense and it's reasonable to have hope that the marriage could be saved and that your spouse could change their mind. And in that situation, the best thing for you to do is not to ask them about it. Don't say, why haven't you signed the divorce papers yet? Or why haven't you started proceedings like you said that you would? You don't want them to know that you think that it's obvious. You want them to be able to go at their own pace. And if they think they're making a mistake, let them experience that doubt. And the longer that this can go without them actually doing one of those things, the less likely it becomes that they will, simply because they get used to the idea of not doing it. And they start to kind of recognize this in themselves, that they're not certain, that they do have doubts about ending the marriage. And so this is a good sign. This is something you should be encouraged by. It doesn't mean that you are 100% in the clear, but there is a reason that they have not done this. If every ounce of their being wanted the divorce and wanted the marriage to be over, then they would move quickly most of the time, unless there's some sort of obstacle or financial reason. If there's no obvious reason why they would be delaying and they're just delaying, logically, it means they're not certain, they're not ready, that it sounded too big when they actually got to that moment, that it seemed like it wasn't as inviting before, and that maybe they were making a mistake. So it's a positive sign if they're not proceeding with the divorce or they're delaying signing the papers. And you should do whatever you can to keep that delay going on, to make this thing drag out as much as possible. And a lot of times that means not asking them why they haven't yet, because you don't want to dare them. You don't want them to start being concerned that they might be leading you on or something, because then they could just be impulsive and do it and then regret it later. And it's a lot more difficult to get two people back together after the divorce has happened. It's like trying to get the toothpaste back into the tube. You don't want to be in that situation. Before I get to number three, get more information on my free mini course for saving marriages. It's a really powerful mini course. It can really get you pointed in the right direction, and I highly recommend that you do that. You can go to marriageradio.com and you'll see a marriage help tab at the top, and you'll see free mini course under that. Just go get that free mini course, watch it. It's going to be helpful, and I strongly recommend that you do. I sincerely believe that it's a powerful tool that can really help you in this situation. Again, that's my free mini course on saving a marriage, and you can get it at marriageradio.com, and I suggest you do that when this video is over. The third positive sign during separation is if there's any physical or emotional intimacy. And this is a lot more common than most people think, that married couples who are separated, it's still fairly common that they will still sleep together, be physically intimate, and that there will be emotional intimacy, like how was your week, how was your day, what's going on with this situation. where they still want to be part of your life and to know what's going on in your life and for you to know what's going on in theirs, because that's intimacy. When you know the facts and the feelings of their life and they know the facts and the feelings of your life, that's intimacy. And so if they're asking those questions, it means they are missing that with you. They are missing intimacy with you. And it's a really good sign. Another sign of emotional intimacy is if they still wear their wedding ring. So if they still have that on, that's a good sign, because it would be easy for them to just take it off. But if they just don't feel right about it, if it just still feels like home and feels normal and natural for them to keep wearing it, that's a good sign that they still feel that emotional intimacy with you and they just can't dismiss that or toss it aside. So if you notice that, if they do come to you and they do want physical intimacy, or they're showing a lot of emotional intimacy, like asking about the facts and the feelings of your life and sharing their details with you about that, then that means that it's still there. That means there's still something there, and they're more likely to delay and reconsider. So it's a positive sign during separation. Number 4 is if your spouse has interest in getting help, if they want coaching or counseling for you two or for them to see if that can help. My organization provides both of those things, coaching and counseling. You can get that at marriageradio.com. It's also under the marriage help tab. You'll just see coaching session. And if they're willing to do that, especially if they bring it up, it's a terrific sign. It means that they don't think the situation is hopeless, that it could be salvaged, that maybe some things just need to be tweaked and pointed in the right direction. If they're thinking that way, that's how someone thinks when they're interested in finding solutions. And they're not necessarily just considering it hopeless and only thinking that it's over, but they're actually open to solutions to the problem, that they have a problem-solving mind about it. That's because the outcome to them is actually more important than you realize. And it might actually have started to really be clear to them that their marriage is not just something that they can brush aside, or a switch that they can flick off, or a door that they can just close. And so if they're actually thinking, we could try to get some help with this, then they're solution-minded, solution-oriented about this, which is a terrific sign. So if that's the case, I suggest that you let yourself celebrate a little bit inside, but also that you go to marriageradio.com and you book a session with me or one of my coaches on my staff, and we talk to the two of you or just one of you and help you be able to apply some of the things that can really help save your marriage, including my workshop that's called Relationship Reunite. It's a powerful workshop for marriages that are in crisis that a lot of people would just give up on. So you can get more information on all those things at my website. And of course, remember the free mini course on saving a marriage that's at marriageradio.com as well. Number 5, and this applies more if you have kids, but if they still want to be involved in kind of the mom, dad, and the kids situation, if they still really seem to prioritize the family and they're wanting family get-togethers, maybe family meals, and that's something I would suggest you try to encourage and make happen, is that you still have those family meals so that they can feel part of the family unit and they can kind of start to look around and think, this is what I would be leaving. This is what I would be giving up. We definitely want them to see that. And if they're actually wanting to participate in those things, it's a wonderful sign that they're actually already thinking about that and that they're thinking about how this could impact the kids. And as you may or may not know, there's lots of research on that. Divorce is definitely a difficulty and a trauma for children. It does cause them to have higher risks of behavioral disorders, of being in a marriage where they're abused, of committing a crime, of being on drugs, lots of bad things. And so if they've looked into that at all, you might notice sort of a resurgence in them being interested in having activities with the whole family. And so that's a positive sign if you see that they do still want to interact and be a part of the family unit, mom, dad, and the kids at the dinner table, something like that. That's a positive sign, and you really need to celebrate that and keep that going. And one of the best things that you can do in this, and the other things that I've mentioned, is to really try to show them what they would be leaving. And that's one of the reasons why, if you can avoid the separation at all, for example, let's say that maybe they haven't left the house yet and your separation is just that you're in separate rooms. That's okay for a time. Don't try to say, well, I'll go ahead and leave, or you should go ahead and leave. The longer you two can stay under the same roof, especially if there's kids involved and so it's the family unit, the longer you can stay together under the same roof, the better the chances are that we can save this thing, that some of this will pass, and that they can start to actually reflect on what they would be losing. Because once they leave, a lot of times there's a lot of relief in that. And they can start to feel like that they have started the first journey of their new life, and that it's kind of like a little bit of a mini divorce where they're getting to try it out. And you just can't risk that they're going to have some kind of positive experience, because just because they do, it doesn't mean that you two are better off without each other. Marriages go through times when people become bored or when they wonder what's out there, because we kind of live in a society where we have constant options. Everything gives us multiple options to choose from. And we start to view everything in our life that way, even our marriage. Like, I have the option to leave this, or there are other people out there who I could be with. It's not a good way to think. Marriage really should be a situation of where you burn the ships, sort of like what they used to do back in certain wars when they would arrive and the ships were burned. It meant there's no turning back from this. You're not going to even think about getting on the boat and leaving. You're going to stay till the job's done. And we want that mindset. But in today's catalog culture, we have an option mentality. And so it's important to let them see what they would be leaving if they left. And for a bonus reason, if your spouse seems to be very concerned with how you're doing with everything, how you're feeling, if you're having difficulty, and they just want to know a whole lot about you, it's kind of like I mentioned earlier with emotional intimacy. But in this case, it's showing care and concern for your well-being. Maybe you have a physical ailment, you've been hurt or something like that, you're dealing with a sickness or disease, or a family member is. If they are showing concern for that, that's concern for you and your well-being, which shows warmth and connection that still is there, which is a great sign. It gives you lots of hope, and you need to really let them feel that intimacy that comes with knowing how you're doing in your difficulties. So don't be afraid for them to know that, especially if they're seeking it out. And you should know the same thing about them. You want them to feel and live in as much of that connection as possible so that they can reconsider some of this and be able to look at this as, I don't want to lose this, or I don't want to leave this, or how could I leave this? And that's one of the reasons why, as I mentioned earlier, they might be delaying signing papers or things that would move this along, is because they wonder if they could really leave it, and it's becoming more difficult. These are all positive things. If you see them, you should celebrate, but just remember, your work's not done. You do need to keep moving forward, taking things one day at a time. You can get in a coaching session with me or a coach on my staff. That's great. And get that free mini course that's at marriageradio.com. This has been Coach Lee, and as always, thank you for watching.